A lot of people want to judge MMA. What happens is there are no UFC or Bellator judges. I'm just going to put that out there as far as none of them work for the UFC. None of them work for Bellator. They work for the Athletic Commission.
And they shouldn't work for UFC or Bellator.
But what you have is there are several judges, and I can name them off as far as the ones you're seeing the most of. The one you see the most of is Sal D'Amato. He's the guy that seems to be at every big fight, and he's been doing it for quite some time, and he has acquired a reputation of being very consistent in the eyes of the athletic commissions and in the eyes of the promotions, being the UFC, Bellator. They believe he's got a consistency about his judging. Sometimes, he's off and he's in a position sometimes away from the other judges. Sometimes that doesn't mean that he's wrong. Sometimes he's actually got the right score and the two other judges don't. We had one in Bellator. It was very similar to that, and I scored it just like Sal did. And you look and you go, there's no doubt about this, but the other judges looked at it in a different way. So you got Sal, you've got a guy named Derek Cleary, who's from Georgia. He's really outstanding. And, you're taking a look at, their backgrounds. Derek Cleary he's been doing jiu-jitsu forever. He's a black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Obviously, people don't hear about him because he's not competing all over the place, but he puts a lot of time into this. Chris Lee from Florida, he's another one that you see. Mike Bell from California is another one that's up at the top. My son, Ron, he's actually one of the guys that they use a lot of top. He limits himself to 2 shows a month, basically, because he's got a family. And he says, I'm not going to do more than 2 shows. And so he does the 2 shows. And he says, the other time is for my family. So you're going to see those guys over and over again. And the reason you're seeing them is the commissions believe in them. Now, they're not all licensed in every place, but for the most part, you're seeing them in Nevada, you're seeing them in California, you're seeing them sometimes the Mohegan Sun, or something like that for Bellator. So they're licensed in the states that do a lot of fights. To sit there and say, what does it take? Well, here, I'll give you a clue. My son started judging fights when he first took my class. And I can tell you right now, I was the hardest son of a bitch in the world on it. And I did that based upon not being, I want to be hard on my son. I knew what my son was going to go through because of me. People were going to say that he got it easy based upon me. So he went through the course. He passed it, and he passed it with flying colors compared to a lot of people. But from that point, he went into what was called CAMO, which is the California Amateur Mixed Martial Arts Association or organization. And he did over 500 fights in CAMO. So he does that. Eventually he gets licensed by the California State Athletic Commission, and they start putting him into small shows. And in those small shows, he starts, they start actually aggregating his scores against what the other people are doing. And then they take and they look and say, all right, this guy, he is at a 96% that he's always got the right score compared to what everyone believes he should have, or something like that. There's going to be times when, as the judge, you're sitting in that seat, you don't see the fight the same way as everyone else because the angles don't work for you, and you end up giving it to the other guy. But from that point, he started doing bigger shows, and all of this takes place. And then eventually, Nevada says, hey, we have a spot. Would you want to apply? And he'll apply to that. And you're talking about a process that has taken him now. This is 2021, and he's been doing that since 2008. Jeez. So 2008, 2009, maybe we'll say. So from 2008 until 2021, you're looking at, a good 12 years to get to the position he's at. But all the fights that he did that you never had any clue of, or all those things that happened. And then all the times when going to other classes and learning things from people, the text streams that are done, there's a lot that goes into it. If you want to be that guy, you can make it. Start going to a gym, start learning everything about MMA, start learning every submission there is, start understanding, if I ask you what submission is that and you don't know it, then you aren't ready to judge. Okay. That's just as simple as it gets, because if someone's doing something that you don't recognize, then you can't give credit for it. Everything that is done, every takedown that is done, everything that is done in that cage, you should understand exactly what it is it being done right, and how effective is the person with it. Those are the things you need to do. You start doing that, then I would suggest going to a class. There are classes out there. Herb Dean's got classes. I used to do it. I've kind of put it off on other people now. Every now and then I'll show up, but there's the command course. You can go to MMAreferee.com and look at that. If you want to go try to do that, they'll send you a thing of a date that when they'll have a class. Go to the class, start going to amateur shows, start working for some of these amateur organizations, show that you are the guy that has the best scores overall, and then eventually you'll get that pro license, and then it all starts over again, and you got to keep proving yourself. That's how you do it.
Sounds fucking horrible.
I'm sorry that took so long.
No. I'm just saying it sounds horrible because you've talked about Frank Trigg. He went through it, what, twice? He went through it three times. And there's other fighters, we've seen, and we've seen some fight, like Shaolin, I think he's a better judge than he is a ref. He seems very uncomfortable in there. I've seen him ref a couple times. He seems very uncomfortable.
Not good at making decisions.
Yeah, he's like that.
Not decisive.
You said the same thing about Jason Herzog when he first started. That he was good at decision making, but you're like, hey, stop bouncing around in there. You seem like you're fucking ready to run a marathon. Like it was the bouncing around, hip forward, hip back footwork, and it's like, settle down, okay? You're like that jumping back and forth. Can fighters pay attention to that in their peripheral?
So does the crowd, and that's not what you want.
Yeah, so there you go. So those are just examples. I mean, I'm sure there's a ton more you could give, but like I said, it sounds horrible. It just sounds horrible. And especially when you say, hey, when you said, what submission is that? And I'm thinking Darce Anaconda. Fuck.
That's the truth, and that's what it is.
100% agree. Okay.